morning. Good morning, good morning. Everyone surviving Las Vegas so far? Who feels better today than they did yesterday? Anybody? Good. That means you're doing it right. So a few things just to get out of the way. First things first, I will share with you, I went to music school. My life's ambition was to be a drummer. And as I was going through my sort of goal list of things I wanted to accomplish, record an album, tour, I'm very proud that I got to achieve a whole bunch of those things. The one thing I did not do was headline Las Vegas. So now I can check that box. Thank you all. This is really all the dots connecting. I do just want to point out one thing before we sort of roll into this presentation, and that is that what I'm going to share is not intended to be an Altria perspective by any means. It's in fact not even a Nat Sherman perspective per se, because obviously what we do in New York City is very different than what you all do in your own businesses. So what this is really meant to be is just sort of a perspective of what I think will work, and some strategies that we do use that I think can be translated and then implemented into your businesses. So that will ultimately be my goal for the purposes of this presentation. It's also, this is a presentation that's meant to be dynamic and engaging, so I certainly don't intend to be up here for 45 minutes talking to you. I hope that we can have more dialogue and some interactions as we go, and there'll be some opportunities to do that sort of built in also. So with that, I say let's get started. So we're going to start with just a little bit of trivia here. Who knows who said this? One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Huh? Neil Armstrong, right, very good. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Reagan, very good. Very good, 2 for 2. Next year is going to be the easiest one yet for the tobacco business. Right, never. It's never happened. No one's ever said it. No one will ever say it. It's just not going to happen. So I would like to sort of reevaluate the title of this presentation, because frankly, while the FDA is clearly a bit disruptive, it is just another challenge in how we grow our businesses. So I'd like to alter the name of this to how to merchandise, market, and promote in a constantly changing landscape. Because at some point, there will be some regularity and normalcy to how we deal with the agency, and there's going to be new challenges and new problems that we're facing on local, state, and federal levels. So we're going to look at this presentation in the context of thinking long-term, growing our business, and being prepared for all of the changes, whether it's FDA-related or something else, that we will certainly face. What I'd like to do is try and find, rather than going very broad very quickly, to really fine-tune some key strategies that I think ultimately you can implement into your businesses. So we're going to talk about brand experience, consistency, partnership, using your gut, but also using data, and then, of course, anticipating change. When we think about the idea of brand, I think it's very easy to think about the brands that are listed here and brands that we know all the time. Apple, Nike, Google, Facebook, Adidas. These are brands that we know, brands that we love. We understand what the experience is, and then we decide whether that's a brand or an experience that we want to be a part of. The bottom line is every business is a brand. Every one of our businesses is a brand. And within our brand, we have to have a certain philosophy, and we have to have clarity as far as what our brand is and what our brand is not. And when we look at these brands, which are the most valuable brands, they are very clear in the experience of what the brand is and what the brand is not. And there's a lot to be learned with, by that type of clarity and focus, and that's what I'd like to chat a little bit about first. So this is a brand experience. Looking at this brand experience, I would like to know, what does this business do? And what does the brand experience say to you when you look at this brand experience? Yell something out. Huh? Luxury, okay? Say it again. Quantity? Quality, yes. Over quantity, arguably. What else? Give me some other words. Let's go for the expensive. Let's go for the obvious. Mercedes, okay? Expensive, luxury. There's also something to the experience itself. Perhaps not inviting, but for those who relate to that brand and aspire to that brand, it is everything about the brand. It's polished, it's beautiful. There's an expectation of an experience when you walk in the door. There's an expectation of expertise when you walk in the door, right? All of those things exist within the brand experience of what is Mercedes-Benz. What is this not? It's not discount. It's not used. It's German. This is a very clear message of what it is and what it isn't. What is this brand experience? Cheap? Affordable? Stay away from it with a 40-foot pole? I think there's a trust factor that might be different with this brand experience versus the other. But I think what's important here is also, this is a very specific experience that is right for a group of people. And there's a group of people who opt into this experience and prefer this experience over the Mercedes-Benz experience. In this case, the expertise is the consumer's. The consumer has to be the expert and know exactly what they're looking for to make sure that they get the right vehicle. Value, quantity over quality. This is not Mercedes. So two completely different brand experiences that at the end of the day will deliver a vehicle to a consumer. But the experience of buying the vehicle couldn't be more different. And both are being very deliberate in being all in their key experience. It's probably fair to guess that Mercedes sells secondhand Mercedes too. But they are not leading, or they're not trying to be both. They're leading with their brand experience first. And that's something that we can all do a slightly better job of in our businesses, because we have a tendency to want to be everything to everybody. And at the end of the day, it's not practical to try and be everything to everyone, because you're never going to be the best at any of them. And that presents a challenge. Let's look at these two brand experiences. What do they say? On the left, fine dining. On the right, not. How would you describe the difference between these brand experiences? Quality over quantity, right? Let's talk about time for a moment. The experience on the left wants you to sit. The experience on the left, the experience exists within the restaurant, in the seat, at the table. The experience at the right exists at the counter. They both serve food. If you are hungry, you will achieve what you need in both of these brand experiences. But they are very, very different. And they're very deliberately specific in what they are and are not. It is fair to say that if you wanted to take your food to go from the fine dining restaurant, they would accommodate it. And it is also fair to assume that after you pick up your tray and experience on the right, there's probably a seat for you to sit down in and enjoy your meal. But the experiences are completely different. So it's about consistency in what you are and what you are not, and being the leader and the best in what you are first. So ultimately, these four very unique brand experiences, none of them are wrong, None of them are inferior. In fact, all four of them are incredibly profitable. But they are very, very different. And they require focus, and they require strategy, and they require consistency. One of the easiest ways to create brand experience in our businesses is with the evil E word, events. How many people do events on a regular basis in your business? Whether it's a promotion, whether it's an engagement, whether it's a buy three, get this. Events are an opportunity to engage directly with the customer. Today, for those of us in brick and mortar businesses, we have a lot of competition with internet. What can we do that is completely different to a consumer versus an online experience is events. Because you can engage and you can meet that person, you can shake their hand, and you can deliver an experience that is very different than just clicking and buying. But I would argue that the buy three, get one experience is a little bit tired. So what can we do differently for events that are meaningful and that resonate? There is an authenticity to each of you as business owners or business leaders, and that also ladders down to the authenticity of your business itself. Personally, I don't have an athletic bone in my body. So for me, there's absolutely nothing authentic if I wanted to try and do events somehow related to sporting events, because I have no expertise or interest in the subject whatsoever. So for me, the events that we participate in that are meaningful are involved around the things that I happen to like, whether it's men's fashion, whether it's food and wine and culinary, because it's authentic to me, it's authentic to our brand experience. But in your own businesses, I would challenge you to find the things that are meaningful to you as a business owner and leader, and that also resonate with your customers, and then create experiences that are inspired by your interests. So outside of your typical promotion, whether it's something at a golf tournament and setting up a cut and light experience there, food festivals, holiday shopping events have been very successful for us in New York around key moments: Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, graduations, because it allows you to collaborate with other businesses. It also allows you to collaborate with other hobbies, and through those other hobbies, you're able to find other adult smokers who are maybe not aware of your business, or more important, are not aware of the experience of your business, and it's an excuse to work together and invite new people in. The one event that I think is tremendously valuable for us at Nat Sherman, and I would encourage you all to do this: how many of you are asked to donate free stuff? All the time. Everyone wants free product. For a raffle, for an auction, for this fundraiser, for some other fundraiser, for my doorman's cousin who has a fundraiser. Everybody wants free stuff. And at the end of the day, there's no value to just giving away free stuff, because you don't know where it goes and there's no way to bring them back. What we do at Nat Sherman regularly is we donate an experience in our store. So we will donate a night at Nat Sherman with, and it could be one of the hosts, it could be a spirit partner or a brand partner, but it's a night at Nat Sherman with. It typically raises a lot of money for the group. It also guarantees that you get people into your business. I can promise that the person who bought it is not going to bring 9 of his cheapest friends. The person that bought it is going to bring 9 people that he wants to impress, and all of a sudden there are 10 folks who are pre-qualified to be in your business and spend their money. So I would encourage you, if you have the venue or an opportunity to do something like that, I would encourage you to do it. And if it's not in your own business, then do it in a neighboring business, a local cigar bar, or even at one of your customers' homes. There is a way to create these experiences that are meaningful, and the money does not come out of your pocket until the experience is redeemed. So just a suggestion there. Consistency is everything when it comes to branding, to promoting, to marketing, and creating the brand experience. So if you think of the places that you go back to, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a theme park, the places that you frequent I would argue, probably have things that are consistent within their experience, that are replicated in the other areas where maybe those experiences exist, like a franchise, and then they're expected. And that trifecta is very key in not just setting expectations for your customers and your guests, but then meeting and exceeding those expectations when new people come in. One example of that we use at Nat Sherman is what we call our cycle of service. No matter who you are, when you enter the Nat Sherman townhouse and when you approach a humidor, you're greeted by one of our tobacconists. Every tobacconist picks up a tray and walks through the humidor with the guest. That process sometimes turns people off, but we do it anyway, because the consistency of it and the value of that service is worth more than the one or two people who don't like it. The consistency of that service sets an expectation so that when somebody sits down or somebody goes home and tells their friends about the experience of the Nat Sherman townhouse, they remember the helpful tobacconist that walked through the humidor, that carried the purchase for them, that brought the tray to the register, that even though they only bought one cigar, we still wrote down the names of the other 4 cigars that were on the tray on the back of the business card to make sure that the next time the customer came in, we could pick up where we left off. That's a very consistent cycle of service that for us has proven to be very beneficial, not just to the growth of our business, not just to upselling, but it's one more thing that sets an expectation that we can at least meet and hopefully exceed when a person comes in. And it becomes the story that a customer can tell. So when you're in your businesses, ask yourself, what story is a customer going to repeat when they leave this business and talk to their friends? Because that's where we win in brick and mortar businesses, and it's where internet often fails. How do you exceed the expectations of a consumer online? It's generally with price. And I saw a quote the other day. I was watching this luxury branding council, and a guy said, quality is the single most important thing in the absence of price. Price is always the most important, but people are willing to pay more for something when quality is part of the equation. When you have quality in service, when you have quality in your people, when you put quality into your training program, at the end of the day, that is an experience that people look forward to, they seek out, they opt in by walking in your door, and it will return successful for you. This is a great identity crisis for every one of our businesses where you can consume combustible products within the walls of your business. 25 years ago, the retail tobacco business was not a venue. The retail tobacco business was just like the retail alcohol business. You went in, you purchased what you needed, and you left, and you consumed it somewhere else. But over the last 25 years, it has become the responsibility of many retailers to also provide a venue to consume the very goods that we sell. The idea of vendor versus venue is a very challenging balance, because while we are trying to justify the dollars per square foot that we sell, we also have to make sure that we justify the seats. So I would suggest there's certainly the opportunity to do both, and we do both at Nat Sherman, but we are clearly a vendor first with a venue second. And that's important to us, and it informs everything we do. The chairs we have clearly state you are welcome to sit and enjoy that product, but you're probably not going to sit long. That's a very specific message. We want you to be there. We want you to enjoy the product. We'd also like you to move along. Because at the end of the day, we're not a venue. For if you walk into beautiful cigar bars around the country, clearly they're leading with venue. But if you're trying to be both, you will never be the best at both. And you will ultimately leave room and strategy on the table. So I would recommend that you select which one you lead with, and then you support your primary business with the secondary. Does that make sense to everyone? Let's talk about merchandising quickly. Merchandising is what delivers the product to the people. We have two different merchandising options here. The merchandising on your left is a luxury retail men's boutique. The merchandising on your right is a suit warehouse. Both are going to sell you a suit. But the experience on your left, it is not what you see is what we have. The experience on the left is meant to tell a story. It's meant to present a concept. It's meant to show some, but not all. It's meant to stimulate a conversation. It leads with the concept of expertise, much like the Mercedes dealership. On the right, it's very clear. What you see is what we have. We have every color, we have every size, we have every fit. If you're looking for something, go help yourself. Full service, self-service. Not unlike the first two brand experiences in the used car and the Mercedes, and certainly not unlike fine dining and Burger King. How you present your product is your billboard. And today, more than ever, we have to merchandise in a way that does the selling for us. We're all running lean operations. I don't think anyone is looking at their business saying, man, I just have way too many employees. We're all lean, and we're trying to do the most we can. To not maximize merchandising in your stores is truly leaving money on the table. If we translate this into a tobacco store, on the left is our humidor at the Nat Sherman Townhouse. On the right is a humidor that is not in the Nat Sherman Townhouse. I think they tell very similar stories to this. On the left, we present our cigars in a certain way that allow us to tell a story. We present them in a way, whether they're our products or whether they're third-party products, that is in keeping with what the brand experience is of Nat Sherman, which may not be for everybody, but it is consistent in our philosophy of brand. We also don't necessarily put everything out. There's a theme in retail in the men's world where you don't put out your navy and gray suits, and you don't put out your solid black shoes. Of course we have them. But why would I take up the real estate to tell you a story that you've already heard? If you need it, you ask for it, we bring it out. Merchandising can be a very similar tale. You don't need every size of every blend that you sell put out equally. You can tell a story. And by having some but not all out, it forces a conversation. And if we're not having conversations with our customers, then why are we in business? We have a door with walls. When people walk in, they're opting in for an experience that is not click to buy. They are already pre-approved by the fact that they open your door and walk in. How do we have those conversations without being overly pushy, obnoxious, interruptive? You create the opportunity for those conversations. And merchandising is the first step in starting those conversations. Second start to those conversations in our store, for example, we do have the luxury of being able to smoke in our building, and we encourage our employees, like a lot of premium tobacconists, to enjoy the products while they work. However, working in our store, and I would argue working in your store, is still a job. It's not a hobby. It is a job. So you don't just get to pick your favorite cigar and smoke it every day. You need to smoke cigars that are deliberate. And what we encourage is you use products that tell a story. In the top corner, that's a Super Lancero, 8 inches by 38 ring gauge. Lower right, Perfecto, both with a V-cut. Now, I can promise we're not going to sell a hell of a lot more Lanceros and Perfectos by the fact that our guys are smoking them, and we're probably not going to sell a hell of a lot more V-cutters either. But every time a customer walks in and sees one of our employees smoking a Perfecto with a V-cut, they ask the question, why? And in that moment, it allows our guys and gals to be the experts in their field. It starts a conversation that is much easier to have than, can I help you? Are you finding everything all right? Once that person says no, the conversation is over. Simple techniques like this present the opportunity for conversation and dialogue that then lead to, what can I help you find? So these are just a couple techniques, again, that we use in store. Presumably, we sell other things besides premium cigars and combustible products, other diversification products. We tend to merchandise within the category. We tend to merchandise with like products, because if someone's looking for a lighter, it's much easier to say, well, all the lighters are right over here. All the cutters are over here. Humidors, they're all right here. That is marketing to the consumer. The person who's going to use the goods likes to shop that way. But what we find is the person who spends the most money is not the person who's going to use the product. The person who spends more money is the person who's buying the product for someone else. The people who use our products are all the hardest people to buy for in their families. They buy everything themselves, they already have everything, and no one knows what to get them. When you merchandise in your business for the gift buyer, as opposed to the gift receiver, and you merchandise in sets and stories, I would suggest that you will sell more sets and stories and less one lighter, one cutter, and one ashtray, because you do the work for the buyer by presenting it in this way. For the consumer that needs a lighter, he or she's going to buy the lighter they need. But merchandising in a story fashion will upsell, and you will sell across more categories more often using this technique. Partnership. There is a sense, particularly in the premium cigar business, but even throughout the larger industry, where, going back to where we started, there's this idea that you want to have something for everybody. If someone's looking for it, you want to have it in your store. You want to make money selling it. And there's also a sense of wanting to support the industry. So you do business with as many vendors as you possibly can. You want to support people. You hope they support you back. But true partnership is not just sprinkling a little business around. Because how, as a vendor, can every vendor support every customer? There has to be a threshold of where that value is. But as a retailer, you can own that partnership, and you can ask for more when you are a partner of such high value to your vendor. Embracing partnership with a vendor will give you access even to product development. You talk about what's working, you talk about trend, and you help lead your partner in their investments in new products. Having a great partner will help you try products and offer more trial and the ease to swap products in and out, where if you're not an A account to that vendor, those opportunities may not exist. Being a great partner will offer more training opportunities to train your staff to learn more about the products and be able to sell more of it and talk more intelligently about it to consumers. And then finally, being a great partner allows you usually a bit more margin, more promotional support, and lets you be more competitive with some of the outside businesses, particularly those online, that are working in bigger margins than we can do. So embracing partnership will set you up ultimately for a more consistent future, in particular as we're facing all these changing landscapes. Last, trust your gut and your data. Today, I think more than ever, we have great systems, affordable systems in our stores that can tell us what's really selling. I know I am just as guilty of making a judgment about a product that I think sells well or doesn't, only to run a report and look like I don't know what I'm talking about, which is why I don't talk to people anymore, because I usually don't know what I'm talking about. Data is critical, but so is gut. And it's the balance of the two that will set you up to be nimble and agile as we move through these changing landscapes. You want to have a selection of products and categories that are authentic to your business, that relate back to what your brand experience is and is not. And you want to lead with the products that support what your brand experience is. You also want to make sure that you're selling products that your customers want to buy, and you're not selling products that you just want to sell because you think they're cool or you think they're interesting. There has to be a demand and a pull for the product. Otherwise, you end up being a collector and not a retailer. And finally, as you set goals and targets to grow your business, $250,000 in a year, you need to drill that down to a manageable number, because these lofty goals can really be very overwhelming to figure out how you achieve them, and especially for your teams and your managers. So being able to drill down a big number into very manageable numbers by day, by customer, by product, suddenly takes this big number and it suddenly becomes a very achievable goal. So I would encourage you, as you're working with your teams and working with your managers, to be able to set these focus goals that will ultimately translate to the big goal you're looking for. Finally, we need to anticipate the fact that change will be a consistent part of our business, certainly for the foreseeable future. And whether that's regulatory, whether it is taxation, whether it is smoking bans, and whether it's just the consumer preferences changing dynamically in real time, we have to understand the fact that that is in fact inevitable, and we need to be prepared to be agile, to be nimble, to be flexible, and to hopefully foresee what we think is coming. We also have to be significantly different and valuable to our customers. So how do we do that? Create programs that reward your customers for their business. We all have more cards in our wallets today and more passwords and logins than we've ever had, because everything we do today, we earn points on. Everything. Every hotel, every car we rent, every store we shop in. We still swipe our cards at CVS. I've never used a CVS point in my life, but I promise I swipe my card every time because I want to make sure that they know just how much gum I'm buying. To be able to give back to our customers and reward them is a significant advantage, and shockingly, not enough businesses in our categories are doing that. Significant advantage. Experience-based initiatives. You cannot enjoy our products virtually. You can only enjoy our products in reality. There will always be a need for businesses like ours to create experiences that are uniquely different, that you cannot get virtually, also then supports that very principle. Experiences that are not just price-driven, not promotion-driven, but experience-driven cannot be replicated in the absence of a brick-and-mortar space. So creating those experiences, consistently executing them, having people talk about them, and then come back and experience them for themselves will put you at a significant advantage for the future. And last, you need to be involved. You need to be involved in your community. You need to be involved with your local fellow business leaders, local government, your state government. At the end of the day, today certainly more than ever, every vote matters. And you would be hard-pressed to find an elected official today that doesn't recognize that. So inviting your elected officials into your business, allow them to meet your customers, engage with their constituents. I think you would be surprised at how many folks would take you up on that offer. And last but not least, I would also encourage you to encourage your customers, for those of you that have the ability to enjoy your products in your business, encourage your customers to use your business also as a venue for their hobbies and their groups. If they're already pre-qualified as an adult smoker, they're already a pre-existing customer, how do you build your customer base? By experiences and allowing your customers the opportunity to use your venue, whether it's for a meeting, whether it's for a club, whether it's just for a get-together. The invitation to do that is a very unique proposition for customers, and I think your customers would certainly appreciate the opportunity to do that. I'd like to close with this quote. If you don't know Peter Drucker, he is the king of what modern business management is. He said the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, it is to act with yesterday's logic. I think that is profoundly true in our industry today. I think it will certainly prove true in the years to come. And I think it's opportunities like this, both here, out on the floor, at the bar later tonight, where we're constantly talking about our business. We're constantly trying to make it better. We're learning from each other. We're seeing what works and what doesn't, and then not replicating in our businesses, but being inspired by and then implementing strategies that are similar. And hopefully I was able to share some of that with you today. So I would invite you, if we can continue this conversation, I'll be at 4022 for the rest of the day. We also have an event tonight at the Tobacco Leaf, which is here in town, which is a tasting seminar. So if you're curious about what an experience event might look like, it's at the Lake Mead location, 6 o'clock this evening. So you're welcome to come and do a component tasting with us. But with that, I'd like to open up for any questions. There's a mic in the middle, and Ben's going to walk around with a microphone also.
Great presentation. Thank you so much. If you could raise your hand, anyone's got a question, and state your name in the store. Here we go.
Thanks. I'm Angel with CSP Magazine. You mentioned that telling stories with, I thought it was interesting that you merchandise for the gift buyer, and you had several examples. Can you provide a more specific example of how one tells a story with merchandising and creates that story for the gift buyer person?
Sure. There's two parts to that story. Number one, a gift buyer can only buy what they know the customer wants, or what they think the customer might like, right? Whoever the recipient. We use two strategies. For the gift buyer who does not know what the recipient specifically wants, we create the set. So we create humidor, lighter, ashtray, cutter together. We'll stage a box of cigars gift wrapped with an example of what's in the pre-wrapped package on top, with a lighter and a cutter and a humidor. So it creates the gift. Ultimately, they may not buy the whole thing, but they are certainly not buying the set if you don't present the set. And we're all consumers, so none of us like to be upsold when we are in a store. If I've come to buy this shirt and now you're trying to push a tie on me, I'm angry, right? If I just brought all these things up to a counter and now you're saying, is that it? Can I sell you something else? You didn't do your job. But I know when I walk into a store and I see the jacket, the shirt, the tie, and the pocket square there, I'm not just buying the tie, I'm buying the whole thing, because that's what I really want. You can do the same thing in store. The other thing we do, though, is how do you convince the recipient that they want this specific item? And this is one of my favorite strategies. You have to plant the item. How do you sell a DuPont lighter for $1,800 and convince a customer that walked in for a $10 cigar that they should actually spend $1,800 today? Very difficult thing to do. But more times than not, the customer has never actually held the $1,800 lighter. So how do you plant it? Because he's going to know if you walk up with a bright, shiny lighter and say, hey, have you seen this? You're trying to sell it to him. So we have a policy which is called always be cleaning. Always be cleaning means you stand at your most expensive counter, polishing, cleaning, and then when that Joe regular comes in every day, you turn to him and say, Joe, you believe this lighter's 1,800 bucks? He says, get out of here. It's 1,800 bucks. Look at it, feel it, light it. You hear that ping? That's unbelievable, solid brass. I assure you, that guy will own that lighter. And he is not gonna pay for it. But someone's gonna buy it because he's gonna go home and tell someone, I saw the most beautiful lighter today. So being able to manipulate and plant those seeds in a meaningful way. I'm not just doing it to try and upsell this person. I'm doing it because it's a beautiful item and his life is gonna be better owning it, right? I'm not selling him something that's unrelated. But by planting the seed in that way, in his or her mind, they already own it. And that's a case where they would then deliberately tell a gift buyer, I was at Nat Sherman today, they had this beautiful lighter, it was 1,800 bucks, I can't believe it. Seed planted, gift buyer walks in, I wanna buy X lighter, it's merchandised with like products, also with a story, and if they're buying a lighter, they might buy the case that goes with it, they might buy the matching cutter that goes with it, they might buy something else. That answer your question?
Good question. Any other questions?
Over here, Ben.
Here we go.
Good morning, Bob Coleman, Charlottesville, Virginia, and I have been a customer in your stores. How much of your product is actually bought versus sold? And maybe that's a follow-up to the previous question.
How much is bought versus sold?
Correct.
So I think what you're talking about is from a responsibility of our salespeople, is it a consumer walking in and grabbing what they want versus a salesperson pitching?
Correct.
So I'll go back to our cycle of service. We are staffed sufficiently to be able to offer that experience consistently. In a perfect world, no customer would be allowed to self-serve at any moment because there's always one of our employees guiding and accompanying. And it's not because we think they're gonna steal, it's not because we're trying to be pushy, it's because we think it is valuable to have that level of service and expertise available all the time. So I would like to think that every product, every transaction that happens at the register is a result of our employees advising on that sale. That being said, about 30% of our business is a regular. And we all have regulars in our business. Part of the interesting dynamic with a regular is when they are truly a regular and you see them every day, you tend to treat them differently with less service in our mind as a reward for being a regular. I'm not gonna bother Joe. He comes in every day, he buys the same cigar every day, he knows what he wants, that's good old Joe, we're not gonna bother him. But two problems happen there. Number one, you are providing a lower service to Joe, who is your regular customer that comes in every day. Number two, you have a store full of customers, some of which are first-time customers and are not regulars. And those first-time customers experienced the brand experience for the first time, and expectations were met or exceeded. But as they're sitting and enjoying a product, they then see the inconsistency of that service because they don't know Joe's a regular. And so they see Joe in there fending for himself, and that changes the perception to the new customer who thinks, man, this place isn't as good as I thought. So to go back to your question, the customer opts in to walk in for that experience. We manage that customer experience from the moment they walk in to the moment they walk out. I would say probably 30 to 40% is predetermined, but then you can bet through our cycle of service, a high percentage of those people with a predetermined item that they're going to buy are also going to buy something that they did not intend to buy when they walked in. And that's cycle of service, our tray, and the way we make recommendations, which if you've been there, hopefully you got to experience that.
And as a follow-up, that was an excellent explanation, but what other findings have you been able to achieve with your CRM management? Having more data on the consumer, knowing their patterns, the possibility of upselling. Is it absolutely critical to have that CMR data in your, under your promise to the consumer now?
I think I will also tell you, full disclosure, we do not have a great rewards program. Even in our own store, it's something that we're working on now to improve, because we do think it's so valuable. But I think there's two parts to that question. One is from a reward standpoint. The other is just from a data standpoint. From a data standpoint, the largest amount of our history as an industry was done with a cash register that had no data, right? So you do what you can. A lot of us grew businesses with no data. But having the data is a significant advantage, not just from what sizes, what blends, what countries, what items and what trends are selling, but also what time of day, what else are they buying with it. There's so much more to understanding who the customer really is. And we have such a specific business that our data set is a bit narrow. But the more diverse products you sell, the more cues you can get from other categories. So in a business that also sells beverages and food, for example, having the data to understand that you are leading with Fiji water and some craft beef jerky would suggest that if you have a humidor cigar program and you're leading with $3, $4, and $5 cigars, you're probably not reading the cues right. The cues say that if you're selling Fiji water and craft jerky, you should in fact be selling cigars maybe in the 5 to 8 range, because you clearly have that caliber of customer already. And so I think that's where you can really get into the sort of consumer trend and consumer mindset, when you can start really digging in on the patterns and also their response when there is a carrot to be dangled. Are they upselling themselves to achieve this goal, this free gift, this rebate, etc.? Does that answer?
I think we have time for one more question. Anyone else got a question? I have a question. You do this so well with your social media. Is there any best practices or ways that retailers can use social media to help grow or better their brand and business?
Let me be clear first. So from a social media perspective and a business perspective, we are actually not on social media. Personally, I am on social media, but that's absent of business and there's no branding and other things. So I want to be clear about that. That being said, that's a business decision for us not to be on social media. And obviously, social media is still legal for us for you all to participate in. And it's an incredible tool. What I will say is, if you do social media poorly, it's probably just not worth doing. And so that's where I would also encourage you to get help and find experts, because those who do social media well win. But the bar is so high from a content standpoint, from a quality standpoint, from an overall story standpoint, that really even what could have been considered decent platforms and pages a few years ago, without having high quality content and something that's consistent to the theme of why you're even participating on social media in the first place, it's probably not worth doing. So it is very valuable, it's very cost effective, but I would encourage you in the channels that are valuable to you, and that are legal to participate in, I would certainly encourage that you get some help to make sure that the content and the quality of that content that you're putting out there is relevant.
Okay, thank you for that. This closes out our first session. I'd encourage you guys to stop by if you have any questions at the Nat Sherman booth and have a conversation or chat with Michael. Thank you so much for your time, Michael, and grateful. Appreciate it if you give him a nice round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.